everyone, it's Sabrina from the Gombe family, and today we are going to talk about things I don't miss in America. So I wanted to say before I get started that these are things I don't miss about America. So these could be things that you guys couldn't live without. These could be things that you completely disagree with me on, and that's okay. I still want to hear that in the comments, and I just love hearing your guys' opinions and differences in viewpoints. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I have 14 things for you that I don't miss about America. So they're in no particular order, no like I really miss this or I kind of miss this. They're just in random orders. So the first one is the lack of work-life balance. So I actually wouldn't have said this being in America because often when you're in America, you don't even notice how the work-life balance is so completely off. But when you go outside of America and you live in a place that they do have a work-life balance, or they care a lot about their family and less about their work. Not meaning they don't do a good job, just meaning that if it was up to them, they would rather be with their family than at their job. Right? So I would rather have that work-life balance and find a job, which is one of the reasons I'm doing YouTube, find a job where I can be here with my family because that is the thing that I care about most, you know? Most people in America actually don't even take their 2 weeks a year vacation time, and they just let that acquire and don't even think about it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, you know? And that is crazy to me that most other countries, they get a month and even more time off per year at their job, and that's paid time off. And they, of course, take all of their time off, and usually they are encouraged to take their time off because when they come back, they are usually a better worker. And there has been studies done to show that if you allow workers and encourage workers to take their paid time off, they are going to be more productive workers when they come back from that vacation. So that is something that I really don't like about America, that we just work. And there have been many cases of people who have heart attacks at their desks at work just because it's too much for them and they have no balance. So that's something that's definitely an issue, in my opinion, in America. The next one is, I'm sure, very controversial, and that is being very patriotic. So yes, other countries are very proud of where they're from. I even talked to one of my Zimbabwean friends that I was like, well, if you married an American, you could get an American passport and that would be like better for you. And he was like, I would never do that. I am Zimbabwean. Like, very passionate about where he is from, you know, and not wanting to change that or to appear different. But they still aren't as patriotic as Americans. Americans like to say, oh, America, right? We're so proud to be American. And that's great. We should be proud. But we shouldn't have the mentality of, oh, we're the best and everybody wants to be like us. Everybody wants to speak English like us. Everybody wants to come to our country, you know, and that is the mentality that I have been exposed to my whole life, you know, and not just from my parents, not just from anyone in particular, people all over, you know. When a kid is growing up, you don't have to necessarily teach them something in order for them to learn something. And I very much see myself with that mentality, not on purpose, and I often catch myself being like, no, just because this is the American way doesn't mean it's the right way, you know? But that was the mentality that I saw growing up, you know? A great example of this is why in America do we not learn a foreign language? In public school, we don't learn a foreign language until high school for 2 years. What is 2 years of a foreign language going to do for you? I guarantee you it's going to do nothing for you. You know, you can talk to so many people who had these 2 years of foreign language in high school, and I guarantee you most people didn't learn anything and don't remember anything unless they had their own intrinsic motivation and they went out and continued learning themselves. Why in every other country, regardless if it's a third world country or a modern country, do they learn a foreign language starting in kindergarten? Why don't we do that in America? Some private schools in America do that occasionally, right? But even Safari went to a private school in California, and I asked them, do you guys teach foreign language here? And they were like, well, we really wanted to teach a foreign language, but I mean, there's only a certain amount of time in the day, and we had to decide whether we were going to teach a foreign language or whether we were going to teach like a technology class. So we decided on the technology. And I was just like, how is that going to help my child? You know, like, yes, technology is going further and you need to know about technology in order to be successful, but you also need to know about the world, about foreign cultures, foreign languages, all of that. So yeah, I think that that's a huge issue in America with the mentality of we're American, we're the best, everybody wants to be like us. Granted, of course, that's not everybody, but in a general sense, we just go a little too far with it. Okay, number 3 is interruptions from servers when you are at restaurants. So I have seen this in every country that I've been to. It is different from America. So in America, you will have a waiter coming up to your table and asking you, oh, do you need more of this? Can I help you with this? I have to sneeze. Yeah, but in other countries, they don't do that. You have to flag them down in order to be like, oh, I need this sauce, or, oh, this order was wrong, right? And I think it's better that way, to have to flag them down, as opposed to you having a serious conversation, or you're on a date, or whatever the case may be, and your server comes up, oh, do you guys need anything? And you're like, oh, no, we're good. Or you're mid-chewing and they're asking, and you're like, oh, no, we're fine. You know, like, it's cumbersome. So it would be better if they just waited until you like flagged them down, or waited until they passed your table again, going somewhere else, and asked them, oh, by the way, can I get this? So that's definitely something that I don't particularly miss about America. Number 4, people are generally rude in America, and I am including myself in this. So yes, I think that I am definitely very rude. I know that I have gotten that from people in my childhood that are also very similar to me, and not going to mention who, but yeah, I think that Americans are very rude, and I think that it stems from that lack of work-life balance. It also stems from always having to be busy, doing this, and that's actually my next number 5. But yeah, like, it stems from all of those things, that always in a rush, you know, so you don't have time to stop and smell the roses, as we say, or just stop and help somebody that needs help, you know. And this is particularly the case in larger cities. So I actually noticed this outside of America, in Beijing as well. In bigger cities, capital cities, people don't have time for you, you know? So that is definitely an issue of people being generally more rude in America, but particularly the big cities in America. And like I said, number 5 is busyness. So sometimes people are busy and they're not doing anything productive, you know? They're just busy. Oh, I have to do this, and then I have to go to the grocery store, and then I have to go pay this bill, and then I have to, you know, and it's just like the mentality that you have doing that busyness, right? It's not like, oh, let me go do this. Okay, I'm done with that. Like, oh, I could also do this. You know, it's not like a calm mentality. It's like oh, I have to do this, and I have to do this, and this bill is due today. And, you know, it's very rushed. And so then that relates to people being rude. That relates to the lack of work-life balance. And it just creates an entirety of a very negative environment, not a sense of community, not a sense of friendliness or anything like that. It's just a very negative environment. That also goes along with the keeping up with the Joneses and all of that type of stuff. Somebody in the comments said that keeping up with the Joneses is a problem that I have, not that America has. And I would have to disagree. Like, I've never wanted to keep up with the Joneses, but just seeing other people want to keep up with the Joneses is, is worrying, you know? Like, why do you feel the sense that you have to get a new car because your neighbor got a new car, you know? I've never felt that sense of having to compete with somebody else, but I see many, many people in America that feel like that they have to do that as opposed to other countries that I've lived in. Just my perspective. Okay, so number 6 is car issues. Granted, I said in my previous video of things I do miss in America that I miss the ability to be free, to be able to take my car, only have to pay for gas, and go to the grocery store, go on a road trip, go wherever I want to go with my child. We actually had a Prius, so we put a full-size bed in the back of the Prius. So when you pull down the seats, the whole back of the Prius lays completely flat, and it holds like a full-size foam mattress. So that's how we had it, and then we would fold it up when we would put the seats up, and it would be like a couch in the back of the Prius. So awesome. If you don't know about this, look up Prius life. It's amazing. But yeah, so we would go on trips and we would just sleep in the car, and it would be awesome. We made like window covers for the car. So that is something that I do miss about being in America, having a car. But what I don't miss about being in America and having a car is the insurance and the registration and the maintenance and the oil changes and how expensive gas is. It's just nonstop when it comes to the finances of maintaining a car, you know? So here in Kenya, yes, you have to have insurance, but it is very, very cheaper compared to American insurance. So I don't have anything on my record, and I recently looked it up, and it would be about $100 a month for insurance for a Prius if I go back to America. However, here it's a fraction of that. Like, I'm talking about like less than $10 a month for your basic insurance. So that is a definite difference there. There is no type of registration here. You don't have to register a car in the sense of paying yearly to own this car, which never made sense to me. Property taxes doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure people would disagree with me, but that doesn't make sense to me. You bought this land, you own this home. Why do you have to continuously pay the government after you've already bought it? Doesn't make sense to me. Same with cars. Doesn't make sense to me. The DMV doesn't give a fuck about your time. You go to the DMV, you wait in line all day, a day that you could be working and making money. They don't care, you know? So that is the car issues I don't miss about America. Number 7 is the first one that I came up with when I thought about making this video. It is shootings. So some people have their own opinions on this, but I have had a personal scare when it came to school shootings. I lived in Panama City, Florida, and I worked on base as a contractor, and Safari was going to a preschool in town in Panama City, and the school name, the one that she went to, had a very similar name to a school that had a school, there wasn't a shooting, but the school was locked down because a crazy person with a gun was on campus, right? So then I hear people in my office talking about it, and I was like, oh, that's crazy, blah, blah, you know, very casual about it. And they were like, yeah, they said it's at Covenant Christian. And I was like, that's the school that Safari goes to. Like, just thinking about it makes me like tear up again. And so I started crying and crying. This is back when I would wear like 3-piece suits and like perfect makeup and perfect sock bun, right? And I was just crying. And even like the commander of our squadron, who didn't like me at all, he was like, that is not a joking matter. Like, go try to call the school and see what is going on, blah, blah, blah. Turned out it was the other school or whatever, which of course is very sad for those parents, but I was very relieved that my daughter wasn't in a really bad situation. So because I have had that experience, I don't like all of this school shooting business that is happening in America. And my own personal opinion is that it has to do with how people are raised, and it kind of goes back to that mentality of like, we're the best, like no one can compete with us type of American mentality, you know? And I think when kids feel a certain way about their parents or being bullied or things like that, they think about what is going to hurt America the most. What is going to make the biggest impact? Now everybody wants to get on the news and get their 15 minutes of fame. So they think about how they can make that happen, And of course, that would be harming children. Like, every single person has a heart for that, So I think that that's just ridiculous. And yes, bad things happen in other countries. Worse things happen in other countries, you could say. But that's just ridiculous. And the rapid rate of continuing school shootings or shootings in general is just ridiculous. That kind of goes along with gun violence, gun conversations, all of that. I don't really have an opinion on that either way, because currently I live in a country where it's very difficult to obtain guns, and America is where I'm from, and it's very easy to obtain guns. I used to be federal security, and I would have to have a gun with me when I worked. I had 2 guns at my house because I had one for practice and one for work. So I have been a gun owner, and I have not been a gun owner. So I don't have an opinion either way. I just think that it's kind of overplayed out conversation either way, and something needs to be done about this shooting situation. Okay, so number 8, I don't feel as safe in America as I do here in Kenya. Could that be the fact that I am married to a Kenyan? Maybe, but I don't think so, because I felt much safer in China. I felt much safer in Mexico, even though before I moved to Mexico, people were like, oh, you can't move to Mexico, it's dangerous, people will chop your head off. Okay, but I feel much safer in the foreign countries I've been to thus far than I do in America. I feel like there is just so much violence in America, and oftentimes for no reason, or just because they want to rob you, or just because they're a psychopath. I don't know. But I feel like there's much more respect when it comes to people here in Kenya. Even if they don't know you, they will respect you. It's almost like they don't want to burn bridges. That is absolutely the case here in Kenya. They never know when they might need their neighbor's assistance or this random person's assistance or a friend or whatever. So they always make sure they are as friendly as possible to the person that they are speaking with, because they never know when they're going to need that help. Like even us, we have money, right? Like not a lot, but we have money to maintain ourselves, right? But we are good friends with the hotel restaurant owner that is right down the street. And so now we have her phone number. So instead of sending our daughters with money when we go get chapatis, which is kind of like a tortilla, we have her phone number. So we just go ahead and call her, or we use the M-Pesa number that we got from her, and we pay that way. So she gives the amount of chapatis that we need, we pay from our house, and our daughters come back with the chapatis. It's that easy, and that's because we have built a relationship with her. Sometimes we go there and we don't have enough cash to pay, and we're like, oh, I don't have enough. Like, can I give you the 30 shillings next time we come? Yeah, absolutely. We always give it back to her, so we build that relationship. And that's just not the case in America. You would never go to a restaurant and be like, oh, I don't have enough. Can I pay you tomorrow? That would never be the case in America, unless you were like best friends or family with the person that owned that restaurant. So very different in that sense. Number 9, debt is normal in America, and I have definitely been a victim of this. Granted, I don't say that it is not my fault at all, of course, because I chose to take out these loans, but it's just okay in America, like many people have said that how is it okay for you to approach people who have just graduated high school? They don't understand that they will have to pay this loan back necessarily. You're telling them, of course, they'll have to pay this loan back, but in their mind they're like, oh, I'm gonna be making so much money then, it's not gonna matter, I can pay it off easy, like they still don't have that reality mindset yet. And then you're telling this 18, 19-year-old, oh, I'm gonna give you all this money and you don't have to pay it back for like 4 years. They're like, okay, let's do it, not fully understanding what they're getting themselves into. And I have definitely fell victim to that. And I definitely have a lot of school loan debt, having 3 master's degrees. So that is a huge issue. If I grew up in Kenya, that would not have been an issue, because you can't just get loans for school, you know? You or your family, or both, have to come up with this money in order for you to go to school. Many people do fundraisers in the village to try to save up enough money for a person in the village who got good grades in high school to be able to go to some type of college or technical school. So there's no such thing as these crazy school fees and loans associated with people until their 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, like there is in America, and it's a huge issue. Okay, the next one is number 10, which is emergency prices can kill you. So me and my husband have talked a lot about this when we have discussed going to America for short periods of time. And here in Kenya, when you have an emergency, like we have had to go to the hospital a couple times, right? That hospital bill was like 2,700 shillings, which is about $23. You know, that is the extent of the hospital bill. We have looked into, whenever we do get pregnant, how much it will cost to deliver a baby here. And that cost is about about 15,000 shillings, which is about $130 to deliver a baby here. And that's a 2-day stay in the hospital. Usually they do natural pain medicine, so not any epidural or anything like that. That's the doctor, that's everything that is encompassed in delivering a baby. That's the vaccines that the baby needs right when they're born. All of those things are included in $130. My mom has told me that it was like $40,000, and that was US dollars. And that was, my sister is, let me do the math, like 26 years old. So that was 26 years ago, and it cost like $40,000 for my mom to give birth to my sister. So that's just crazy, you know? And here it's only $130. So even if you don't have insurance, you are not going to be in a serious situation financially if an emergency comes up. And that's an emergency with our motorbike, or an emergency medically, or an emergency in regards to transportation. Nothing is going to break the bank here for people who make American money, at least. People who make Kenyan money, yeah, those things might break the bank, but it still wouldn't be as significant as breaking the bank in America. You know, it's just ridiculous how prices are so extreme. If you want to fix your car in America, oh, that's going to cost you a few thousand. You know, if you want to have some type of medical service, oh, that's going to cost you tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. You know, like if you have to move from this apartment to this apartment, you have to pay deposit and first month's rent and last month's rent. You know, like it's just so much money for emergency situations in America, as opposed to here, not so much, you know. We paid deposit and first month's rent when we moved into this place, and that was $30,000, which is about $260, you know. So there's nothing here that is going to break the bank. So that is something that I don't miss in America, the cost of emergency situations. Number 11 is processed food in America and the large quantities that are served to you at restaurants. So processed food, there is countless options of processed food in America, regardless of if you're going to fast food restaurants or if you're going to the freezer section in the grocery store. You know, there are just tons of processed foods. And the way that you could see that is by looking at the ingredients, because the ingredients list is like 2 paragraphs long with most stuff that you can't even pronounce, you know, tons of preservatives, you know, so many things that are just not healthy for you whatsoever. However, here in Kenya, if you go to a restaurant, or what we call here a hotel, a little small restaurant, you're gonna get home cooked food. They are cooking on the same stove that you are cooking with at your house. They're using the same oil that you're cooking with at your house. They are using the same flour, the same everything that you are using at your house, you know? So you are getting a home cooked meal, you just don't have to cook it. And it's at very cheap prices. So we go to Mama Luis's hotel, which is right here down the street. And the chapatis are 20 shillings each, which is about 17 cents. You know, the beans are 40 shillings each for like every person's bowl of beans. And so that's like 34 cents each. You know, like you can get a full meal for like 80 cents. And that includes tea or water. And it's delicious, you know, and it's a home cooked meal. So that's definitely an issue here with the processed foods and the quantities of foods. When you get food at Mama Luis's, you don't get a huge quantity of food that you can't finish because there is no food waste here whatsoever. You are not going to see half-eaten plates on people's tables like you would at Olive Garden or something, you know? Like, you're not going to see the breadsticks just sitting there. Never, never. And that would just be strange, you know? People eat their beans and make sure that they get all of the soup out of the bowl as well, you know? Like, people don't leave anything on the table, you know? So now all the people that work there have to do is pick up the bowls, wash them real quick, and then they're good to go for the next people. So there's no food waste whatsoever. So that is a good thing, and that is because people aren't served too much food to where they can't even finish it all. Okay, number 12 is cost of health insurance. So in America, I have been very lucky in this situation because I have either had Medi-Cal in California, I have had Medicaid in a couple states, and then I have had insurance through employers a few times as well in Florida and a couple other places. So I have never had a serious issue with having to pay for health insurance, but many, many, many people do, you know, and it's a huge issue that everybody talks about in America. And here, as I have mentioned, the cost of having a baby here is $130. You know, the cost of dental work here. We went and saw how much it would be for veneers for Georgina to get her 2 front teeth fixed. And that was, I can't remember the exact price, but I think it was like less than $1,000 for 2 veneers. So it's just crazy cheap here compared to American prices. You know, that is something that we're worried about if we ever decide to go to America for a short period of time, you know, how much those things cost. So health insurance is definitely something that we are concerned about if we ever decide to go to America to visit or to have a extended stay. Yeah, that's an issue. Number 13 is hidden prices at stores and restaurants. So we're talking about taxes. We're talking about CRV on like soda cans and things like that. We're talking about tipping at restaurants. So in Kenya, there is no tipping whatsoever. It's not like, oh, you're being rude because you don't tip. Like, that's just not a thing here. Unless you go to like a really expensive hotel, which only foreigners go to, then those busser boys or those like people that help you get your suitcases, they might be accustomed to people giving them extra money. And of course, they're not going to say no to that. But besides that, like, there is no tipping here. So you don't have to tip. And then in regards to tax, they put the tax in the price of the item. So if you're getting a bag of chips at the store, you don't have to be like, oh, okay, well, the bag is 25 shillings and then it might be like 3 shillings for tax. So no, like if your kid wants to run into the store and get a bag of chips, they know the bag of chips is 25 shillings. That's it. That's all I have to give the cashier, 25 shillings, you know, and there's no such thing as CRV here. So yeah, that is definitely something that I enjoy about Kenya is I can look at the price and I can be like, okay, that's the price, instead of having to do all these calculations in my head. And the last thing that I have to talk about is the lack of community in America. And this is just a cultural thing of how we were brought up, you know, like, and this might be different. I've seen in the Mexican culture in America that they have much more of a sense of community. You know, I have also seen in more poverty-stricken areas that they have more of a sense of community, but in general, I see that there's a lack of a sense of community in America because it's kind of like everybody for themselves, you know, and that's what I was taught growing up, you know, like you need to be independent, you shouldn't depend on anybody else, you have to make sure that you work hard so you could provide for your kids and you could do this, this, and this, you know, that has what I have always been taught by my mom and my dad. And is being independent a good thing? Absolutely, it's a good thing. But do you still want to make sure that you don't burn bridges so that you can get help from the neighbor or from your cousin or whoever if you need that help? Yeah, you should always have that sense of community, you know? And I just think that you're always like competing with somebody in America. And I've heard this from other people too, that like, okay, if you are a Democrat, then you're fighting with Republicans, you know? If you are Black, then you're having issues with white people, you know? Like, there are always people that you are fighting with. And are these big issues that I am not talking about in this video? Yes. So those are things that could have a whole video in and of themselves. But the point is that why are there always these fights going on between different groups of people instead of just having a sense of community and being there for each other? You know, there are different tribes here in Kenya, and do they sometimes not like each other or have stereotypes about one another? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, are they all still Kenyan and willing to help each other when need be? Absolutely, you know? So that is definitely something that is lacking in America and that I don't miss. So those were my 14 things that I don't miss about America. I would love to hear your guys' opinions. I know some of these things are controversial. I know some of these things don't apply to everybody. So I completely understand that. And I would love to hear your opinion on these things. Please let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I will see you in our next video. Bye!